Hello and welcome again to investingsuccess.ca and another of our information videos. Today is the 18th of June 2023. I'm going to start with a question. Question is, are we in an AI, artificial intelligence bubble? I say we are. And the premise of this presentation is to show you why I think we're in a bubble. And I'm going to say that it's time we started to use some common sense because, as we know, when bubbles break, shareholders and investors and traders get hurt, and you don't want to do that. So, are we in an AI bubble? Yes, we are. Let's learn a little bit more. So, before you start chasing AI and getting swept up in what you're hearing in the media, stop for a minute and ask yourself, what is AI? Have you heard of it before? Has it been around? Well, in fact, it has been around for quite a long time now. We just haven't referred to it as AI. We typically have referred to it as a computer algorithm. So, 1997, IBM developed an algorithm. They called it Deep Blue, and they put it up against world chess champion at the time, Garry Kasparov, and it beat Mr. Kasparov in a chess match and a subsequent rematch. So, what was Deep Blue? Well, it was nothing more than an algorithm that was programmed to look at what Mr. Kasparov had done, what piece he had moved, and then the algorithm would say, okay, I can respond by moving several of my pieces to counter that move. And if I move one of my pieces to counter him, what are the odds of success? And it's quite an elaborate program, but it was able to then beat Mr. Kasparov, and it certainly caused a lot of upset in 1997. People started envisioning a world where humans were no longer relevant and computers controlled everything. And so IBM had to be a little careful, and they decided to keep things sort of on the down low. But behind the scenes, their programmers and developers were improving these algorithms and getting them ready for other applications other than chess. In 2011, they developed an algorithm called Watson, and it had been programmed with trivia and paraphernalia, and they put it up against a couple Jeopardy champions, and it was actually able to get the better of these guys. It was just a little bit quicker on the draw, and again, it was nothing more than an algorithm and a database, and the database would be parsed looking for answers. So again, in 2011, it caused a bit of a shock. How could a computer actually beat a Jeopardy human champion? In 2016, there was a company called DeepMind, and they developed an AlphaGo program. And there is a game out there called Go. It traces its origins back, a couple thousand years to China. And it's basically two players on a board. Each player has a different color of piece. Your objective is to box in or corner your opponent so that he can't move his pieces. Well, that just screams algorithm. It's logical. And sure enough, what DeepMind did is they developed an algorithm and they put it up against the reigning Go champion at the time, and it beat him in a 5-game match. So again, it caused a bit of a stir, and you didn't hear much about these algorithms until recently. And what did we hear about recently? Large language models. And in particular, we heard about a company called OpenAI, and they had developed a program called Chat GPT. And then we learned that Microsoft had been investing heavily into OpenAI. And that was enough then to get everybody on Wall Street excited, giddy, looking to buy anything that it could get its hands on that even had AI in the descriptor. And that is how bubbles get started. There is a tipping point, And what used to be called nothing more than an algorithm suddenly got the moniker artificial intelligence, and it suddenly took on a whole new level of sophistication, and people just had to have a piece of it. So let's take a broader look at AI. There's really two components to it. There's weak AI and there's strong AI. Strong AI is a machine that has intelligence equal to humans. There is no strong AI at the moment. There are no machines out there that are as smart or smarter than humans. So really then, the one stream of AI that we are dealing with is weak AI. And to give you an example, Siri and Alexa. That's weak AI. And so let's say you wanted to listen to Beatles music from 1968. Well, you could search through your collection of music LPs at home. You could pick out the ones produced by the Beatles. You could then look at the back cover of these LPs, and you could further parse your collection, and you could pick out only those ones that had music by the Beatles in 1968. Yeah, it's going to take you some time, but you can do it. But what if you had an algorithm? And what if you told that algorithm, search your database of music? You are searching for the parameter Beatles, and you are searching for the parameter 1968. Well, being a computer algorithm, it's going to make that search real quick, and before you know it, Alexa is playing Beatles music from 1968. And the benefit to you? Time. You didn't have to physically take the time to search through a collection of LPs. A computer algorithm searched a database and did the same thing in a matter of seconds. And so the implication here is that AI is going to allow companies to get by with fewer people, fewer employees, and AI is going to save a lot of money and a lot of time. And that's going to translate into improved earnings, higher share price, and that's why everybody is literally losing their cookies on Wall Street and chasing everything that even resembles AI. Now, weak AI has a couple different levels to it. There is something called machine learning, and that's a fairly simple uh, data input. For example, a database of music, and you write a piece of code, an algorithm, to parse that database of music to pull out the music that you are looking for. So Beatles, 1968, fairly simple set of instructions. That's machine learning. Now, lately we've been getting into deep learning, and that is where an algorithm is going to look at more complex data sets, and it is going to look for patterns, and it is going to, based on those patterns, generate some kind of output for you. So Chat GPT, yeah, that is an example then of deep learning. Um, you're telling it that its input is all of the data that it can find on the internet. So that's fairly complex. And it's going to search through that complex data. It's going to look for patterns. It's going to look for meaningful material. And it's going to assemble that then into an output that could be something like a 500-word essay on a particular subject. So deep learning, algorithm, and that's all that Chat GPT really is. So what else is deep learning? Speech recognition. This isn't new. There's been speech recognition programs around for a very long time. I can recall one back maybe 20 years ago. It was called Dragon Speak, and it wasn't perfect, but what it was doing is listening to your verbiage, and it was parsing the consonants and the vowels that it heard you speaking into a headset or a microphone, and it was assembling those consonants and those syllables into what it thought were the proper words that you were speaking. And you could generally get it to write sentences as you spoke. I mean, you'd have to go back and do a lot of spell checking and correcting. But some of those early iterations did save time. And they've subsequently been improved quite a bit. And today we have speech recognition deep learning programs. What else have we got? Online virtual agents. Let's say you have a question, a customer complaint, perhaps. Yeah, you could sit on the phone and you could wait for someone at a call center to answer the phone call and talk with you. Or a lot of companies now on their websites have a virtual chat box, and you can type in your question. And what the algorithm is going to do is take the words in your question, and it's going to look and see in its database, does it have any patterns that fit your words? And it somehow is going to throw back at you an out of the can response. And hopefully that will improve your customer service experience. And if this can be made better, what's going to happen then is call centers will be able to get by with fewer humans actually working and drawing a wage. And this is one of the things that has made the shares of NVIDIA go so crazy, because they have focused on developing the computer chips that will drive the computers that will run these virtual online chat boxes. And the whole premise is, let's get rid of as many humans as we can at these call centers. Let's run computers. They're going to be powered with chips made by companies like NVIDIA. Computer vision is another one you're going to hear more about. So I'll give you an example. There is a company based in California called Laser. LAZR is the ticker symbol. And it has managed to equip, I think it's Volvo cars with cameras. The cameras are continually scanning the road on front, back, and either side of the moving vehicle. And let's say the camera detects the yellow line on the road. Well, the computer is then going to say, oh, we have a problem. This car is getting too close to the center line on the road. Corrective action is required. The algorithm will then cause the steering wheel to turn a little bit to bring the car back into its lane. Self-driving vehicles is where this is ultimately headed. Are we there yet in the realm of self-driving? No. Will we be one day? Probably. But that's just another example of deep learning. Another one is cybersecurity. And, this is not new. It's been around. Let's say that a algorithm scans all of the, all of the Twitter messages on a given day. Well, that algorithm can be made then to look for patterns. And this is how we think foreign operators are influencing voter attitude and influencing elections. So cybersecurity algorithms, deep learning, can look for these patterns of words and posts, and they can identify then potential threats, and action can then be taken. And so suddenly, what we've got are tech companies. Every company suddenly has got the best AI program on the planet. And tech companies have started to realize that all they have to do is mention AI, and people on Wall Street go literally bonkers, and they start bidding these share prices higher. They're not looking at, is the company making money? It's if you've got AI, your share price is catching a bid. That is the classic description of a bubble. When the herd, as in this image here, when the herd is all running in one direction, that usually ends very badly. And I think this is going to end very badly for a lot of these companies. Is AI going to go away after we, run off the edge of the cliff? Nope, it is not. The programmers and the developers working behind the scenes are only going to get these things working better and more sophisticated. And yes, there is going to come a day when this AI stuff is really monetized, but that day is not today. And some of these AI type stocks are just getting out of control right at the moment. Here's an example. GitLab, Class A shares trade in the US. Ticker symbol is GTLB. Go to their website and see what they are. It says GitLab is a cloud-based code repository and collaborative DevOps platform that allows developers to build software fast and serve customers effectively. Maybe that means something to you. To me, that just says you can write an algorithm. Does that mean that GitLab should have gone public? Is there anything really there that can be monetized? And I think what the market is showing you, if you follow this red dotted line here, from the time they issued their Class A shares on their IPO, really it's been a downhill slide. And there's been some half-hearted attempts at little rallies and recoveries, but no, I think people are realizing that this is not monetizable just yet. Someday it will be, but not today. Lately, however, as I say, the herd is all running in one direction. And after the stock made a bottom, an inflection point in early May of this year, we've gone from $38 up to $50. And there was even a gap higher in the price. So there's just insanity out there right now, and it will come to an end. And if you read GitLab's filings on the SEC website, in one of their filings and their management discussions, they show you that it's not good. They admit it. But people aren't reading these SEC filings. They're just following the madness of the crowd. So, for example, in this graph, and I've pulled this right out of the GitLab filing on the SEC, they're showing you that money, let's say you had invested $100 in 2021. Well, had you invested that in the orange line, which is the S&P 500 Information Technology Index, your $100 would now be worth just under 90. Had you invested $100 in 2021 in the S&P 500, you would now be just a little bit over 90. So yeah, you've lost a bit of money. And as we know, interest rates have gone up and the markets have been a bit soft. But GitLab is telling you, had you invested $100 in GitLab in 2021, that $100 today is worth just under 50. You've lost half your money. Not good. Now, their financial calendar is a little bit different. They are currently into fiscal year 2024, but they tell you that their 2023 revenue per share was $4.42. So yes, they're making revenue. People are buying their software. However, they need to hire people then to develop the software, to improve it. They have to hire people to sell it, to troubleshoot, to look after their customers. And really then that revenue that they are generating, they're going through that and then some, and they're losing money. Okay, they've since 2021, since their IPO, they've never been profitable. And they're not losing just a little bit. They're losing a lot. Not good. So GitLab is trading at a little over 11 times sales. A company that is new, that is losing money, that's in its early phases, really should be trading at something like 3 times sales. So really that means GitLab right now should be a $13 stock, not 50. Okay, maybe you think I'm being a little harsh. let's say they should be trading at a 4 times multiple. Well, that still only makes them an $18 stock, not a $50 stock. And they're very clever in their financial statements. They lump together their Class A and their Class B shares. Well, it's only the Class A shares that trade. And that's how I'm sort of calculating some of these multiples. The Class B shares are held by employees and other insiders. The Class B can be at some point converted into Class A, but really I have to base all my calculations on the Class A shares. And GitLab is, if this is just the classic example of AI, it's not good. It's not good. Now, in terms of astrology, they started trading on the 14th of October, 2021. Is there anything that really stands out on this first trade horoscope chart? Not really. Midheaven is at 0 degrees of Virgo. I've got Sun and Mars together in the sign of Libra. I've got Mercury fairly close behind here. I've got, let's see here. I've got the Sun and, or sorry, the Moon and Saturn close by. There's really nothing that jumps off the page at me. Now let's take a closer look here. This is a chart of May 3rd. And May 3rd is when the stock bottomed and it made that inflection point at $28 a share. So what did we have on that date? Well, I had Sun at 12 degrees of Taurus. It was actually passing by the natal Uranus point. Mercury was there at 10 degrees of Taurus. And then I had Moon passing that Sun-Mars point in Libra. So to me, that's a trigger. And it's triggers like that that I look for. And it's triggers like that that can start to make these little counter trend rallies. And unfortunately, in the case of GitLab, as soon as people saw that there was some semblance of a little rally starting to form, they just went crazy and they jumped on board and they drove this thing from $28 to over $50 for no reason. There's no money being made here. There's nothing remarkable about GitLab, and there's really nothing remarkable about a lot of these other artificial intelligence type stocks. It is a bubble. So I'm looking forward here, and I'm seeing July 11th. And what's going to happen on the 11th is you're going to have Mars and you're going to have Venus passing the natal midheaven point. That's a trigger. That's a big one, actually. Now, if there is going to be a turn, a change of trend, will it happen precisely on July 11th? No, not necessarily. It will probably happen a little bit sooner as these planets get even within 7 or 8 degrees of that midheaven point. So I say we're coming up to some sort of an inflection here on GitHub and likely some of these other AI stocks as well. So be very, very careful. And the other thing I always look at on any of these things is the trend indicator. The one that I like to use is the True Strength Index, developed back in the 90s by a mathematician called William Blau. Look at what this thing is doing. It is stupidly overvalued. Okay, this cannot continue. It's going to roll over. It's going to come down. And when it does, so too does the share price. Be very, very careful. There's nothing wrong with AI. Nothing at all. And it's been around for many, many years now in the form of an algorithm that plays chess, that plays Jeopardy, that plays a board game called Go. It's around in the form of Chat GPT, speech recognition, recognizing images to make driving safer for people. But this rush to monetize it has just gotten out of control. And that is the classic example of a bubble. When everybody rushes to monetize something, these companies are losing. Investors are not even focused on that. They're just focused on gotta have some AI, gotta get AI. This is going to end very badly. But at some point in the coming number of years, there will be a point when this stuff can be monetized, and there will be a point when it is time to buy these things. And we just have to have a bit of a flushing out, if you will. And some of these share prices have to come down to more sensible levels. So that's it for me. Just be careful out there. Um, AI is not going away. It's been around for a long time. It is a bubble. Everybody's chasing it. The time for it to be monetized is not today, but there will be a day sooner than later. Just let these things, let the hot air come out of these things. Let this whole sector just come down to earth again. And when it does, and when the media stops blathering about it and fixating on it, um, then I'm going to put out another video, and I'm going to talk about specifically some of these things that are now worthy of buying. But today, things like GitLab at $50, no, I'm not going near it. Anyway, thank you kindly for watching, listening, and have yourselves a great day out there. And the next videos that I'm going to be posting will be sometime after the first week of July. I'm going to take a little bit of time off here from my desk and give myself a bit of a break. So we'll talk in the first part of July. So thank you kindly and have yourselves a wonderful day.